And most people confuse those fences thinking that it's like for security to keep other people out. And it's not. Like all these places are set up as systems. The fences are to keep the people that live there inside of them. They're there to tell us what we're allowed to believe, how we're allowed to think, where we belong in life, what things that we should deserve. The adults that live in these communities, they only know what they've experienced, and they teach us the same thing, like don't want too much. Don't have too big of dreams. This is where you're supposed to be at. Don't look at the people that have money. They're obviously doing something wrong. Everything about a trailer park or project is set up to keep you tied down. I do it almost every time I speak is like finish my sentence with me. Money is the root of all evil, right? And everybody knows that. Everybody believes that's what the Bible says. That's not what the Bible says. It says, for the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil, right? But the Bible also tells us, when we look at Ecclesiastes, that money answereth all things. The Bible doesn't tell us that we should be poor or middle class.
Welcome back to the Sacred Gentleman Podcast. The Sacred Gentleman is a movement that calls men out of comfort and back into God's design. We form leaders of presence, purpose, and generational legacy. I'm Steve Baumgartner, your host, and today I want to ask you a question. What if the biggest thing that's holding you back is not your circumstances, but actually the fences around your mind? In this episode, I sit down with Todd Pultz, and it's a raw and powerful conversation on poverty, purpose, biblical wealth, money mindset, and he actually gives us some tips on how to get started in real estate. Now, in this episode, Todd shares his story of growing up in the projects and the trailer parks of Dayton, Ohio. He shares times when he worked in law enforcement. He shared a time when he lost everything financially back in 2011. And then he also talks about how he rebuilt his life through real estate, business, and of course, some personal transformation. Todd is the founder of Maxed Out, which is an enterprise. He's a host of the Maxed Out podcast, and this man has built a 9-figure portfolio. He's accumulated 1,000+ rental units, and he's co-authored a best-selling book with Kevin Harrington of Shark Tank, and also appeared as a guest judge on The Blocks. But more than that, this episode gets deep down into a deeper issue. It's the beliefs that keep men small, the lies that they carry about money, and the kind of mindset shift it takes to build something larger than simply survival. Let's get into it. Hey, good afternoon, Todd. Really appreciate you coming onto the podcast today, man. Really excited to get into everything, really get into who you are, what you do right now. But before we do all that, I'd love to start back at the beginning, because that's really what got me really thinking about having you on the podcast. I think you got a tremendous story that men need to hear.
At the beginning, man, that's a long time ago, bro. Like you're not getting any younger. I'm not. Like we're old men. We're old men. But the beginning is simple, man. I grew up in poverty, man. I started in the projects in the inner city in Dayton, Ohio. So I was about 6, and then we moved to the trailer parks of, actually it's Dayton, but it's a little small town called Riverside, Ohio. Actually, right where the National Air Force Museum is at was the little city that I was at. But kind of just an extension of Dayton. So, I grew up in poverty, man. No financial literacy. Parents filed bankruptcy. Mom didn't work. She got through 8th grade. My dad had like 50 jobs. Seemed like he got fired with an incredible story from every job that he had. Eventually became a truck driver. I was a great athlete, and had a lot of trauma in my childhood that I don't talk about a lot. But eventually, when I graduated high school, I got out, went to the police academy, became a police officer, made some really good money, started working for a large retail store. Actually, and I don't talk about this a whole lot either, but I started working for a large retail store called Macy. You guys have probably heard of it. But I was in charge of organized retail crime and internal investigations. So my job was basically to fly around the country to every store that had some store manager or cash office employee or some organized group that was killing the store with some type of theft, and interrogate them and get them to tell me, all their deepest, darkest secrets. That's probably the funnest job I ever had. But I did that in like part-time law enforcement for 12, 13 years or whatever it was. I only did full-time for about 5 years at the police department. But 2011, even though I was making great money, I was making 6 figures, I lost everything. My first house was foreclosed on. My car was repossessed from my girlfriend's driveway, who's now my wife. My credit score was negative. Man, and it was just because I didn't understand money. And 2011 was kind of like the rock bottom for me, where I had to make a decision on what route I was going to go in life. Was I going to continue being broke? Was I going to continue sucking at life and not understanding money? Or did I need to make a transition and pivot and be the guy that I knew that I could be the better, at that time boyfriend, but be a better husband, be a better father, be able to impact lives around the world and change the generational cycle that was in my family and And that's what I kind of did in 2011. And that was the first time I found real estate.
Yeah. So that's interesting, man. We're talking about a trailer park, right?
Yep.
You're living in the projects. You're, a place where many, many, many people get stuck,
Hmm.
right? So then you join the police force, which, coming from a trailer park myself, I understand that police generally aren't looked at the same way that everybody else is in those type of places, right?
Yeah.
They're some of the people that hold you now. So let's scoot back a little bit into that transition. And how did you make that way from going from projects to police to Macy's?
Yeah, for me, every business that I've started, every job that I've had is always a very simple story. People ask me all the time, "Why'd you decide to be a police officer?" Well, I was an athlete, and I was like always had ADHD. I didn't like class a whole lot. Like I was good in school. Like the crazy thing is, I was always a scholar athlete. I always got good grades, but I took very basic classes. You know what I'm saying? And my sports coaches were most of my teachers,
Right.
so I didn't struggle grade wise in school. I just didn't pick anything up, like I couldn't pay attention in class. I didn't want to be there. The only thing that kept me in school was the fact that I knew I had to be there to be able to play in the football or basketball or baseball game. My mind was always 100 miles an hour. And when I decided what I was going to do, it was either the military or police work because I didn't feel like I was smart enough to do anything else. And I didn't want to go work at a factory. I didn't want to go, do roofing or, some other type of job. I wanted to do something that was fun. And I like the excitement of the military and police work. And that's all I thought I could do was one of those. And that's why I chose law enforcement, So I went to college, community college, and played a little bit of baseball my first year because I wanted to continue that journey. And then I jumped in the police academy and it was just natural for me. And it was a very smooth transition for me actually into law enforcement, but kind of crazy at the same time because I come from poverty and the first community that I work in is a very wealthy community, like suburb of Dayton South, right? So like everybody was doctors and lawyers and actually all the other police officers grew up in that area. Like they all came from something different. So like it was me and one other officer. We had one black officer. We became really good friends. He was also from the city, from Dayton. But everybody else came from some type of, decent lifestyle. And then everybody you pulled over was a lawyer, was a doctor. Like everybody has a story. They always knew somebody. And I didn't really fit in there. Like every car I pulled over, like I don't know what it is. Like some police officers like this. I had a sixth sense, right? So if somebody just escaped prison and they were drunk and they had somebody held hostage in their trunk, they would probably T-bone my cruiser. I don't know what it was, but it was like, I'd make 7, 8 arrests a night. I'd make felony dope arrests. I mean, I was always getting crazy drugs off the street. I was always getting into pursuits and fights. Like it was just natural for me. But I think a lot of that was because I came from the city. I wasn't naive. And you have a couple types of police officers. And I think we can be open about that. You have the ones that maybe weren't popular in school, weren't great athletes in school, and they get out and they get the badge and they need the power. And then you got guys like me. Like I was the kid on the football team. I was a running back and defensive back, but I was also the kid that on a kickoff, they put me in the middle and they say, "Todd, I need you to run 100 miles an hour down the field. There's going to be a wedge in front of whoever gets the kickoff that's going to block for him. We just need you to fly your body sideways into him and take out the wedge so we can tackle the ball carrier." Like I was that crazy dude that like I just didn't care. Like I liked the excitement. I liked contact. I was in great shape. So police work for me was like supernatural. And a lot of guys like me get out and do that. They're athletes. They like the chases. They like the the adrenaline. And that's why I got into police work. I'm not going to say I got into it because I want to help people. That was a part of it. Right. And I think most people that get into police work, they do it because there is a part of them wants to help them. But for me, if I said I didn't like driving fast and getting 100-mile-an-hour pursuits, I'd be lying to you. Like those were fun. I like getting in bar fights. I like being able to, but then I also liked helping people at the same time. So that's why I got into it. But being from the city and growing up in the inner city and then growing up in the environment that I grew up in, people, if I pulled people over, like I just knew if something was off. Like like, "Hey man, you got dope in the car?" "No." Yeah, you do. All right. Like it was a very, very easy transition for me to get into police work. But I didn't fit in the first department I was at. I was a city kid that, didn't have white gloves on and that's kind of what it was. But anyway, that's why I got into law enforcement.
Nice. And then that transition from Macy's was just, where did that come from, I guess?
Yeah. So actually the first police department I was on, I became our union president. And it seems like a crazy story, but I became our union president. I never had an ounce of discipline, never even had a verbal discipline. But when I became our union president, I was a fighter. So I fought the city, right? Which includes the chief of police because it's their budget. And everybody convinced me, "Todd, you're great. You're good spoken. Like you can go in there and negotiate for us." And I did just that. So we went to arbitration, which if anybody knows, if the city and the police department can't agree on their contract, you got to go to arbitration, which is a third party that comes in and says who's right, who's wrong, and what they think. So we went to arbitration. It became a very heated arbitration, and we ended up winning. Like the union won. We won like 36% increases over a 3-year period. We got our health care reduced. We got additional days off. Like it was a very good package. The day after that arbitration came out, like the week after that arbitration came out and we won, I came in and I had an internal packet about this thick. And it was like, it made me seem like I was the worst dude ever in the world to put on a uniform. And I never had discipline. And it was all over something very, very stupid where I drove a female that I arrested. She had lied about who she was. She was out of Michigan. We couldn't identify her and she had no license, blah, blah. So I was taking her to the county jail, which was a half hour away. And on the way to the jail said, "Hey, we're not accepting any prisoners." It's kind of a weird story for people to understand, but it's not like being in the city. So in the city, when they arrest somebody, they just take them in, drop them off, take them in, drop them off. It's a big jail. When you're in a suburb and you're in like a rural area, the jail might not take your prisoners every single time that you take them down there. They might come across and say, "Hey, we're only accepting felonies or crimes of violence." And they might not take misdemeanors. Okay. So often what we would do is we would drop people off in the lobby of the jail if they wouldn't accept them. And that's what every agency around us did. Like you drive down there, they don't take them, you put them in the lobby, they call their, whatever, call the ride. So halfway to the jail, they came across, the jail had a staph infection. They weren't accepting any prisoners. And mind you, I'm in the country. This is a half-hour drive. The option was drop her off in the middle of nowhere, right? Or take her to the jail like we always did and drop her off in the lobby. And I dropped her off in the lobby. And at that time, I gave her 50 cents to use the payphone to call her family. And that was the end of the story. Nothing else. By the time I got my internal packet, it was for kidnapping, lawful restraint, civil rights violations, all kinds of stuff. And their whole theory was is the minute that I heard the jail wasn't taken, I should have pulled the car over and let her off in the country. Okay. Not taking her down the jail. But because I continued to the jail, knowing they weren't going to take her, I had kidnapped her. Okay. Now they took it to all the courts. The court said there's no criminal charge. And then I ended up winning like 5 unfair labor practices against them. I got all my back pay back. I got my job back. And it was that moment where I decided, is this really what law enforcement's about and working for a city is about? Like I won everything. But what I didn't win back was that feeling I had as a kid about how great being a police officer would be. So I decided at that point that I never wanted to be a full-time police officer again, but I still liked the work. So I still went and worked part-time for an agency 1 or 2 days a month. And my background before law enforcement was already in loss prevention. Like I was already a loss prevention manager running stores. So I reached out to a couple of my connections and they had, I was already trained with interrogations because the police department had sent me to every interrogation school that I could go to. So it was a pretty easy transition into Macy's. And I enjoyed the work, and what I would say about Macy's is that I was making really good money, 6 figures, and I was doing a job that I love. Like I love interrogating people. I love conversation, which makes me good with negotiations in business now. But people hearing like, "Oh, you were a security guard for Macy's?" No, I wasn't a security guard. Like we were taking down 100, 200,000, $300,000 cases on a daily. We were shutting down identity theft rings all over the place. We were working with federal authorities. Like we were working with federal authorities to confiscate houses where people had stolen all this shit from Lowe's, but it started with an identity theft from Macy's. And then we all worked together with like postal inspectors and everybody else in the federal agencies to put together a very high level case. So it was a great job. And I really enjoyed it. And I probably would have never left that job. The only reason that I left Macy's, honestly, was my wife and I had a kid and she came to me and she said, "Todd, I'm done with you traveling. You got to make a decision." And and that was hard for me to hear because I loved my job, but I was on the road every single 3 weeks out of the month. I was on the road somewhere, New York, Chicago, pretty much anything in the Midwest, East Coast. Like those were stores that I had to go to. So 3 days out of the week, 3 weeks out of the month, I was always on the road and I could tell it was breaking down my relationship. Yeah, it was distancing us. I didn't feel good about myself as a man because I wasn't there with my kid. Now, luckily it was, I made a decision before he started growing up, but it all happened right about the same time that I was losing my house, my car was getting repossessed, my credit score was in the tank, and I had to make a decision one way or the other. So it was also a hard decision because how do I leave a 6-figure job without any education, without any degree, and I had nothing to go to? And I've always been very faith-based in what I've done. Not that I've always lived a perfect life, not that I've ever walked the exact path that God wants us to live. I've made lots of mistakes in my life. I've made lots of dumb decisions in my life. But I think that's also the great thing about being a Christian is we have paths to redeem ourselves. We have paths to get over the sins that we have. And in that moment, I was facing a lot of them. So I knew a guy who happened to be the father of my best friend that I was roommates with in college. He ran a security firm. He was a retired city police officer, but I also knew he had some rentals. And at that point in 2011, I said, okay, what am I going to do? My wife wants me to quit this job. I'm losing everything already. What am I going to do? Like I was a broken man. I didn't feel good about myself. And I think a lot of the guys that probably watch it can feel this. I felt inadequate in every aspect of my life, which is harder when you're an athlete and you're used to competing, you're used to winning. And even when, you have jobs, like I've always been good at every job, right? Like you give me whatever job, I'm going to excel past everybody because I have a grind. But I was broken and I was hurt and I felt like a failure. And I thought, what can I do? What is there to do? And there was nothing else in my life that I thought I could do. I was thinking, okay, I'm going to have to just come back to a factory or do something. But I remember seeing, and you're old enough, maybe you remember this. Carlton Sheets used to run these commercials late at night about his real estate course with DVDs. I had bought those. He got me late at night and I bought those. I never went through them. I never read them. I never took the course. But when my house was finally foreclosed on the night before the sheriff's office was coming to take it back, I grabbed whatever I could out of my house and I left. And as I was sitting there in 2011, I had that box of DVDs, the Carlton Sheets real estate stuff. And I said, okay, if I buy a house for $1 and I sell it for 10, I probably made somewhere in between. Like I'm smart enough to figure this out. And I went to my buddy's dad at that point and said, hey man, I know you got some rentals. We're not super close at the point, but your son and I are friends. I have $10,000 in a police retirement account that I have that I could take out. Now it probably was only going to equate to, 70 some, a little over 7,000 after they take taxes out of it. But I said, will you put in $10,000 to $12,000 if I find us a property for somewhere around 20? And he laughed and said, yeah, if you find a property around that. So the next 6 months, that's what I did. I called every listing that was a 4-unit building. I negotiated with every single seller, every single realtor that I could. And eventually I found a deal that was going to cost us $20,000. And I went back to him and I said, I found it. And then he bought in with me and we shared the cost of that property. And it was a great property. Now you can't buy properties at $20,000 anymore in my area that don't need completely rehabbed. But that was the crack in the dam. And when I saw the success with that and I saw the power of real estate because we were making good cash flow also, that was all it took for me. And I was all in and just became obsessed and addicted to learn about real estate. But not just that, learning about money and the evolution of money and how it works and how the wealthy use money and trying to break all the bullcrap, mental fences that I had in my mind about that. And I'll say kind of one more thing about the transition and then give it back to you because I talk a lot, Steve. The trailer parks and projects, and you probably heard me say this in Omaha, they're all set up the same way. They're all surrounded by fences and they're very physical fences. And most people confuse those fences thinking that it's like for security to keep other people out. And it's not. Like all of these places are set up as systems. The fences are to keep the people that live there inside of them. They're there to tell us what we're allowed to believe, how we're allowed to think, where we belong in life, what things that we should deserve. The adults that live in these communities, they only know what they've experienced and they teach us the same thing, like don't want too much. Don't have too big of dreams. This is where you're supposed to be at. Don't look at the people that have money. They're obviously doing something wrong. Everything about a trailer park or project is set up to keep you tied down. And when I escaped the trailer park and the physical fences, in 2011, I realized that I had taken all of those mental fences along with me, and those what ultimately destroyed me in 2011.
Yeah, so that's interesting because I'm getting a little bit of a different takeoff from the fences. I still heard the same thing, but I'm sitting here thinking back, to you would actually somewhat escape some of those fences, right? The physical ones, the physical boundaries. You had this 6-figure job, all of that, but you still had things around money and mindset and things like that and the fences. So you made the comment of you didn't understand how money worked. So what's the difference in between the fence of not understanding and now your full understanding of how money works?
Yeah, and just to be clear about fences, everybody carries fences with them. It's just, how you deal with them, right? And like some of the things that I always talk about on stage is, people maybe tell somebody that they're not skinny enough, they're too fat, they're not pretty enough, they're not athletic enough, they're too old, they're from the wrong neighborhood, they're not smart enough, like all of these things, right? And there's a reason why so many people in our society has confidence problems and have insecurity issues. And those are all derived from these mental fences that we carry with us in life. And the other fences that we have are simple stuff, things that society teaches us, right? So for example, and I do it almost every time I speak, is like finish my sentence with me. Money is the root of all evil, right? And everybody knows that. Everybody believes that's what the Bible says. That's not what the Bible says. It says, for the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil, right? But the Bible also tells us, when we look at Ecclesiastes, that money answereth all things. And the things that society does is society edits parts of things like the Bible, and they create some type of tagline that everybody buys into. And now everybody believes that, right? Like if you ask somebody in the middle to poor class, like, hey man, like I can teach you to be wealthy. I can teach you to be rich. Money doesn't mean anything. Okay. Like money's not whatever. And I don't need money. The only people that say that are people that have never had money and experienced the life that you can live with money, or just somebody that's completely negative in their life. And I think the best example of why the Bible doesn't tell us that we should be poor or middle class. Okay. And listen, this is one, and I wrote this one down earlier because I knew we'd talk about the Bible a little bit. But one of my favorite things is, and you tell me if you've heard this one, but Matthew 25:14, and I'll read it verbatim because I don't want to say it wrong on your thing, but it says, God rewarded the servants who multiplied what they were given and punished the ones who did nothing. You're not called to sit on opportunity, you're called to multiply, right? Like that's what that means in the Bible. So that doesn't mean that you have to multiply your earnings or multiply your real estate or do all of that for yourself. But for the people that don't want money and say, I don't need it, you are called by the Bible to do it for some reason. And if you decide that you want to multiply everything and you want to give everything to a charity or a church or inner city program or whatever, that's fine. But nothing in the Bible tells us to sit and be lazy. That's not what it tells us. We're called
Right.
as servants of God, right? Like we're called to multiply the things in life and to have success. And God also tells us, like I said a minute ago, that money answers all things. It can answer everything in our life and it can answer everything somewhere else for somebody else, and people get that wrong in our society. But those are all mental fences that we're dealing with. And name anything that we believe, like whatever it is a society has told us or the internet has told us, people carry that with them. And you see it right now in politics. You watch CNN, you get one topic. You watch Fox News, you get a whole nother narrative. The truth can't possibly be that contradictory. Like there has to
Right.
be a truth in the middle, but the general public believe one or the other. You know what I'm saying? And that's why the wealthy are in a very small percentage. And that's why so many people stay middle class, because they carry those mental fences with them, whatever it is that they're dealing with in life,
Absolutely. That's amazing too, because I stop and think about it. I told you earlier that I left my full-time job back in July and I was making good money. In between my salary and my bonus, it was damn near $500,000, right? And as I'm running my own business now, I see that there's so much more capable out there for me. But when I was sitting in that full-time job, I was sitting in that fence, that mindset about money. Now, that seems like a lot of money, but of course, we upgrade our house, we upgrade our cars, all that kind of stuff. And I'm tied in with quite a few counter human trafficking organizations, right? That are always on the edge of collapse for money. And I always kept on thinking, how can I do more? How can I do more? How can I do more? And with that fence, I could never really help those organizations out like I wanted to help them out. Now, in my own business, it's weird because I don't have as much money in the bank, but I give more freely because that
Yeah.
fence is starting to come down.
Yeah. God also talks about that. God also talks about those that give freely and how they're rewarded, right? Like that's what God wants us doing. And I think one of the most powerful verses, and I always say it wrong, and not because I don't know how to say it, it just doesn't come out of my mouth right. But Deuteronomy, if anybody's ever read that in the Bible, it says, and I wrote it down just to make sure it was word for word, but thou shalt remember the Lord thy God, for it is he that have given us power to get wealth. I mean, in the Bible, it tells us God is giving us the power to create wealth. Now, he doesn't tell us that we have to do XXX with it, right? But the Bible talks
Right.
about how money can be evil if used in the wrong ways, right? But if we use money as a tool and we use it in the right scenario and we use it the right way, that's what God wants us to do. And I get so irritated with people all the time that have this negative connotation about money, right? Like, oh, we can't talk. The funniest question is like when I'm talking to somebody that I'm mentoring, and one of the first questions I ask them is, okay, tell me how much you make a year. What's your net income? And they always clam up. They don't want to tell me. And I have to
Hmm.
remind them, listen, I want to be very honest with you. If I don't know how much you're making and what you want to make or earn, I can't help you. I can't create a blueprint to get you there. You know what I'm saying? And the first thing you have to do if you want to create wealth is you have to be comfortable talking about money. You have to be comfortable talking about an open setting. And my friends that are not in business, I've had some friends for like 20 some years, 26 years, 27 years, a very close circle of friends. They don't want to talk about money. They don't want to talk about any of that. Like they get really weird and awkward in conversations. And I'm out there like talking about $1 million deals and like, I got this or, whatever. And it's not to gloat. It's not to be arrogant, but we have to be comfortable talking about money, especially if you're in a business where you're going to raise capital. If you're jumping into real estate syndication and you want to raise capital from investors, you have to be comfortable talking about money because how are you going to ask somebody to invest 50, 100, K into a real estate deal or into your business if you're not comfortable talking to them about money? That's why people struggle at sales. They're afraid to ask people to buy a ticket, to whatever. They're afraid to ask them to buy a course or a product. So the first thing you have to do with any business, when you decide you're going to be an entrepreneur, you have to become obsessed and addicted to learning about money and learning about how it works and how money is deployed in a positive way and used as a tool. And then the second piece that's probably more important, but comes second, is that you have to become the best salesperson that you could ever be in your entire life. Because if you can sell to people, you can do any business in the world that you want to do within limit, within reason.
Right. That's interesting. I'm sitting here thinking about, why that would be. And I'm guessing it's probably that fence. It's the comparison trap. Your friends are probably uncomfortable because you've been really successful with money, right? And you can relate that to marriage or anything else. When I talk to people about marriage, I have a phenomenal marriage, Todd. It is phenomenal.
I love
It
that.
is the best thing that I could ever dream to be, right?
Yeah.
And when I talk to people about that, they get really squirmish because they're not investing in it like what I am.
Well, think about
I would imagine money is.
Now we had a little bit of disconnect. I was saying same way, when you had your first job or something, maybe you heard this, but I remember bosses when I was a young guy, my first job was at Arby's and I worked at a video store at the mall. But even as I got into little more professional jobs, I remember multiple bosses saying, now don't tell anybody what you make, right? It was this big secret.
Yeah.
Don't talk about it. That's offense. That's offense. You don't want me to talk about what I make because you don't want them to come back and say, hey, you're paying him more than me. I need to make more money, because they're not comfortable. They're not confident enough to have the conversation to say, yes, I'm paying him more than you because he deserves more than you because XXX. So that's offense that weak leaders set up, right? I don't care if people know how much everybody's making. If you want to make this, you got to do this. If you want to be a rock star, be a rock star. If you want rock star pay, you got to be a rock star, right? So it's just all those fences hold us back. And you're talking about, man, I love to hear that your marriage is so strong and that's so great. And you're right. You get around other guys that maybe you're hanging out and socializing, and they don't have those strong relationships. Those are the ones that are going to try to pull you down into a rabbit hole with something that is not going to be beneficial to your marriage, And for me, that happened. For me, that happened a lot at the beginning until I became strong enough to cut all those people out of my life.
I do want to take a pause, though, for all the 20 years old that listen to this podcast. When he's talking about a video store, we actually couldn't just get videos on these things.
Yeah.
We actually had to march our butts down the road and go check out a VHS tape. You're going to have to work that one up.
We had DVDs at my video store and CDs.
Okay.
CDs, when I was in high school, we had 8, 10, 12 track disc changers in the trunk of our car. You know what I'm saying? My kids, my youngest is 13 and then my other girls are 18, 19. But I did make my one boy, I only have one boy, the other two girls, but I made my boy watch that reality show about Blockbuster. It's on Netflix and stuff, but it's the whole story about Blockbuster and how, it kind of fell from its dynasty. But he's like, what's a videotape? I'm like, well, let me explain to you, son, what a VCR is.
Oh, it's crazy how much tech's changed over the last couple decades.
Yeah.
I remember my first car actually had an 8-track in it. An 8-track.
You're a little bit
So
older than me.
Not a little bit on you, Todd.
Yeah, about the oldest thing I can remember is a lot of kids don't remember this, but we had the compact disc players that had headphones. You'd carry it around.
Oh, yeah.
You had
Walkman,
a tape,
right?
Yeah, you had a tape with a wire. So you'd put it into your cassette in your car, and that wire went into that compact disc player, and you could play CDs through your car because you didn't have a CD player in your car. That's about the oldest thing I can remember. I actually had one I found in one of my storage boxes, showed my son. He's like, what is that? I said, well, you put the tape in your cassette player. It has the wire that goes to compact, and then you can, I said, okay, imagine downloading a song off Spotify. This was downloading a song off Spotify without downloading a song. We were converting our player into a CD player without actually converting it to a CD player.
It's absolutely crazy. I had totally forgotten about those little cassette tapes that you put in.
Yeah.
Absolutely crazy. Anyways, getting back up on track, that's, the biblical wealth, right? I mean, just tremendous fence that, he tells us to pull that fence down, right? In the Bible, you called out those verses. And so many people are living in that fence, whether it's work, whether it's, the poverty level, things like that. So I'm kind of stuck on this, Todd, that your mindset had to be different because you were constantly, it might not have come down all at once, but it seems like it was coming down in pieces, right? I carried, into, well into my 40s, right? Some of those fences, the poverty, the abuse, all that kind of thing. But you were constantly moving forward, going into the police, going into Macy's, figuring it out in 2011, and a constant progression in there. You did stay in that trailer park. What was different about you what's than the people who were still stuck there?
Yeah, a lot of it is rewiring your mindset, and you mentioned it, and you don't have to do that all at one time. And mine came in probably 2 or 3 phases. The first phase was 2011. And part of that story I didn't say is when I left Macy's, I took like a $30,000 pay cut to come back and be the vice president of a security firm here locally. The guy that invested with me in that real estate deal, it just kind of happened to work out. I took over a security company for him. And then he became my business mentor. So I would say that I'm fortunate. I wouldn't say that I'm lucky because I don't necessarily believe in luck. I think you got to be in the right place, the right time to reap the right opportunities and right rewards. But it all kind of happened. And for me, I had to open my heart. I had to open my heart and understand that there was a different way out there and be willing to learn. And that was probably a tough thing for me because being an athlete, being a high competitor, being a guy, I was arrogant. I was arrogant and didn't want to take advice from people. I thought I knew it all. I was always the smartest guy in the room in my mind. So at that point, I had to open my mind and realize that there's so many people out there that were doing more than me. And I was seeing everybody win around, not everybody, but I was seeing people win around me, right? And even the guy that loaned me that money that I had ultimately took his company over for, he had a fantastic life. He had 10 kids, 7 of which were adopted, big, beautiful farmhouse, pools. I remember going to his house at one point for a family barbecue, and we're just sitting around the fire, and he goes to the pool bar and he brings back like 50 Nerf guns, like these boxes of ammo and like all these targets. And we have this big Nerf war on his farm. And I was an adult at the time. It was so fun. But I remember like, I just want to be able to do those things. Like I want to be able to like create incredible environments, incredible experiences for everybody around me. And that took me opening my heart. But I also started seeing a therapist and trying to deal with some of the childhood trauma, trying to deal with what I was facing, trying to deal with the fences, because I knew in my mind that no matter what I did, I couldn't get over them by myself. And that was kind of in phase 1. And one of the most powerful things my therapist said to me at the time, I was complaining about all the stuff in my childhood, complaining about my parents not teaching me anything, complaining about my parents setting me up for financial failure, complaining about the trauma stuff that had happened to me that they never helped me deal with, and how angry I was. And she said, "Todd, you're an idiot." I said, "Well, what do you mean? You're supposed to make me feel good about myself." And she said, "Listen, how can you be mad at your parents for not teaching you all these things? They taught you the only thing that they knew how to teach you, which was survival, right? Like your mom got through 8th grade. Your parents had to file bankruptcy. You're living in a trailer court. You guys didn't have anything in life. How could they possibly teach you anything different than what they taught you? They didn't have the skills to do that." And that really hit home for me. And that was a big turning point for me was she's right. And in my mind, that told me that I had to change who I was, because if I was going to be able to teach my kids how to live a great life, how to be wealthy, that I had to change my own life. And that was a big driver for me. And that became a big why for me, was to learn that. But that was kind of like the first phase. But even from like, I would say 2018, I was slowly building a real estate, empire at the time, getting a couple hundred units and whatever. But I was still held down by the other mental fence that I could do it all by myself and that I didn't need anybody's help, and at that point, social media was getting big, and I was seeing all these names out there doing these crazy things in real estate, or at least they put it on social media they were. And for me, the difference with me and a lot of people is that I never got jealous of those people. I wasn't one of the ones hating on them online, like, "Oh yeah, right, bro. Like that's not your Lambo. You're just renting it," or whatever. That fueled me so much more because I wanted to do that stuff. I wanted to do more than what they were doing. Like I needed to see people, Grant Cardone's a great example. A lot of people hate on him. And while I don't agree with everything that he teaches or says, I also think Grant has done a really good job positioning his family, positioning his life, and he's a marketing genius. I needed Grant Cardone in my life on social media. I've never bought any of courses. I never paid for him. I was hanging out with him a couple weekends ago in Miami, which is crazy thinking about how I started watching him when he was starting his journey. But I needed people like that. I needed to see guys driving fancy cars. I need to see guys and gals living this, crazy lifestyle. I needed to know that that was what was possible. And instead of being jealous, which is what most people do, and most people hating and wanting to just be negative or think that things aren't possible, that made me realize that things are possible. And whether they're real or not on social media, they're still possible. And that was my fuel to kind of do that. So 2018, 19, kind of the end of 18, I went to a conference in Denver, Colorado. It was the first conference I ever went to on real estate. And I saw the positivity in that room. with all the other investors, with all of the other people that were there that were legitimately making great relationships, and they were making connections, and they were talking about investing with each other, and they were also positive and wanting each other to win. And in my environment in the city and even the friend groups that I was in, nobody wanted us to win. Like society's filled with jealous people. And even now I have friends that, I can tell they're jealous because they won't comment on something that they should comment on, or they won't, bring up something that they probably should have brought something on because they don't want to talk about it because they're jealous about it. And jealousy is such a thing that holds everybody down. But in 19, when I went to that conference in Denver, it was actually in Aspen, I walked away and I said, okay, this is like phase 2 for me is I want to be like so good to people and I want to pour into as many people as I possibly can without the expectation of getting anything in return. Like I just wanted to be good to people and I wanted to network and become a phenomenal networker. And that's what I did. I went to work on that and building that part of myself, which was, reaching out to people, being on forums, getting into other conferences, paying for personal investments to go to selective groups and put myself in rooms that maybe I probably didn't belong at the time, but it put me around other people that were in the same mindset. And that was phase 2, is figuring out that I needed other people in my life and I needed those relationships and connections. And then I would say phase 3 for me is what I'm kind of living in now, which was taking everything that I've done and all the hard work that I've put in and now realizing that I've been, and man, I really feel this, like, I feel like everybody's like, well, what are you spending so much time on the road talking and speaking and education and mentoring when you have all these multi-million-dollar companies? And I was talking to a friend yesterday, maybe you know him. His name's Mark Efron. He's down in Miami. He runs a bunch of addiction, very successful guy. And he's best friends with Macy. He does very, very well. Okay. Millions of followers on social media. But we were talking yesterday and we were talking about doing some things together. And he said, people ask you the same thing they always ask me. He's like, you got all these successful companies. Why are you teaching? Why are you speaking on stages? And the answer for me is really simple. The last year and a half, 2 years, I've felt something that I can't describe. I've felt like I was being called by something higher than me, something that was more than me. I know it's God. I know that like he's been putting things in my path that tell me that I need to do more. And I've really just had this like almost like outer body experience the last couple of years that has led me to want to impact as many lives and as many youth and as many people as I possibly can around the country. And that's the journey that I've been on, right? So like, and I love this part of my life right now. Like I love building my businesses. Like I love them. But once I build a business and it's rocking, I get bored, So with this and being in a different city all the time and mentoring different people all the time. And, I was just in Miami with a room full of people with Tim Story and watching people like have a breakthrough in their life the same way that I had a breakthrough in phase 1 and the same way that I had a breakthrough in phase 2, that fulfills me more than any dollar that I will ever make. And then it takes me back to all these people that are online that like they'll comment on ads or events. Oh, this is a scam, bro. Like all these people are scam artists. Like there's real change that happens in some of these rooms that I'm in. And it's so powerful.
Absolutely. So I wanted to share a little bit of a story with you. And to the audience, of course. The room that you're in is absolutely important. Absolutely important. So I was actually running as the chief operations officer for this global group of men, 1,200 men strong, everything else. Personal development, I was growing and growing and growing for about 18 months. I watched everybody else growing, but there was this weird thing that happened. It was definitely living in abundance until you hit a certain point. And then it started to flip the other way, right? It was like the crabs in the bucket. People are trying to pull you back down to their level, right? So I made the decision to leave this group and I joined Bedros Keuilian's tribe that he had at that point in time. I think he's since then shut it down, but I got to be around a totally different mindset of people, people who actually are exactly what you explained, right? People who want you to win. They're willing to invest. You could be their competitor, but they're still going to give you knowledge because they want to see you win, right?
Yeah.
And that room is just tremendous when you get around the right people, how fast you can grow again.
Listen, it's not a secret, okay? But again, this is a mental fence for people. You take anything that I do and you have a mentoring program, right? And there's lots of us good dudes and great gals out there that have mentoring programs, that have some type of educational program. We have live events. And it amazes me every time I open up Meta ads to run ads for something that I'm doing, the amount of negative comments that I get, right? Like the amount of, this guy's a scam and like they've never even met me. You know what I'm saying? Like they've never been to an event. They never went through my educational program. They've never sat and listened to me in a room Like if you're around me for 5 minutes, you know that I'm legit. You know that I'm real. But I see all these comments, and that's one of the biggest mental fences in our middle class today is people believing that they have to stay where they're at because they don't have money to do something else and that they can't spend money to get themselves in a different case. And the truth is in society, it's a pay to play. Society is all about pay to play in a lot of scenarios. You want to be on the top podcast in the country? Just come up with 15, 20K. You can get on any podcast you want, right? You want to talk on a big stage? Just sponsor it for 20, 25K. You can give a keynote speech on a big stage. You want to be in book with a celebrity? And I've done it to add credibility. Drop 10K. You can write a book with a celebrity if you want to. A lot of the middle class and our poor class, they don't understand that's how the world works. And I didn't understand that for a long time. 2011 till like the end of 2018, I wondered why everybody else was getting places quicker than me, faster than me. And when I realized how the world worked, and I realized that if I just saved some money and I invested in personal development by being in a room like you're talking about, by finding a legitimate, like real mentor that has already made all the mistakes, but just by doing that, that I could throw gasoline on my fire and my momentum would take off and I would grow so much faster. Like it'd be incredible, right? And I'll give a very real story for your viewers, and I'll tell you exactly how much it cost me, and then I'll tell you what it's done for me. And this is for anybody that's listening to your podcast because I'm sure that people follow you, or the same as like kind of people that follow me. They debate it for a long time, whether they want to join your program, whether they want mentorship, whether they really believe in what you're saying. And everything that I say is like 1,000% real and honest. But people ask me all the time, like, hey, Todd, how are you hanging out with Kid Rock last year at his house? Like, Todd, how are you with these famous dudes? Like, how are you hanging out with Grant Cardone? And, how'd you end up speaking with Tim Story now? So a big part of me being on big stages now is very simple. A couple years ago, there was an opportunity to write a book with Kevin Harrington from the Shark Tank. And he was going to let 12 entrepreneurs write this book with him. It's actually right here, Building Wealth, Building Legacy. And I'm not trying to sell you the book because I don't make any money off of it. If you want to go online and get it, I maybe I make 63 cents on it. I don't know. But at the end of the day, it's a good book, and it's like 14 entrepreneurs. We all wrote like our journey in there, just what we went through. And we all went to Florida. We went with Kevin Harrington. He has a chapter in the book. We did a photo shoot. We did a press release. We pumped the book that's out there. That cost me $10,000. Okay. Now people are like, you paid $10,000 to write a book? Yes, I did. Because when you want to create a personal brand, you have to have credibility, which means you got to be around famous people. You got to be around other people. You have to have some books and things that are out there for people to know that you're real. So I wrote that book with him. They tried to get me to invest with their company because that's what everybody does. They try to get you to buy more. They try to get you to do more. That's how it's set up. But I never did anything with them because I didn't think they could help me get to where I needed to be because I was already on a higher level than most everybody else. Okay. So probably about a year later, they called me and asked me if I wanted to come speak in Nashville at their big brand ventures conference. And I went to that. It cost me money to go do that. It cost me money to travel and to be on stage there. But the reason I said yes to it was because I looked at who the other speakers were. And one of the speakers was Tim Story. And I knew that Tim Story was a celebrity life coach to Oprah and Kanye and Robert Downey Jr. And I knew that he was connected and very well respected. But I also knew that he was very faith-based because he's a pastor in his life. The first night that I was there, we had an after party like dinner. Me and Tim sat in the corner of that room and we talked for an hour and a half. We became friends in that moment, like real friends. We connected. And he said, Todd, I want to coach you. I want to help you bring out your stage that's inside of you. And I want you to be a part of what I'm doing. And now I'm part of his Lead with Love tour. Like he's connected me with a lot of other stages. I also in Nashville met Brenda Ringwood and part of the Becoming the Better You, which I've made some really amazing relationships. That's how you and I connected, was because I came to Omaha to speak. Right. One of her events, and I'm speaking at a lot of her events. And I'm getting these stage contracts all over the place. And I make decent money for most of them. Like I don't make it on all of them. There's a lot that I do for free because I believe in what they're doing. But I make really good money. People wanting me to come be a part of their stuff. Like I make money on podcasts. People ask me to be a guest on podcasts. You're not paying me to be here. I did it because I genuinely liked you when I met you in Omaha. But that one $10,000 investment has led to this incredible personal brand that I've created and that I've developed. Would I have gotten here if I would have never spent that 10 grand? I don't know. I would have been some fashion of it, maybe, but it wouldn't have been as fast as what it was, right? Like I wouldn't have had 500,000 followers on social media. I wouldn't have been in the rooms with some of the big names that I've been in the room of. And I think when people are looking at these programs, You have to pick the right one that fits with your vibe. There could be a great mentor out there, but they might not teach the way that's going to be good for you. They might not teach what you want to learn, and you have to do some research. But that is a mental fence of so many people's like, well, why would I pay X amount of dollars just to be in a room? Or why would I pay X amount of dollars to write a book? Or why would I pay X amount of dollars to have somebody mentor me? Because if you don't, you're not going to do it on your own. That's just the truth. Most people don't.
Right.
Need somebody to hold them accountable. They need somebody that's been there and that's done that. And I would encourage anybody that's listening to your show is like, you got to make a move. And if you never do anything, 3 years from now, you'll be in the same position. 5 years, you'll be in the same position. The only difference is you'll be older and you'll probably have some more scarecrow wrinkle lines on you. That's it. But that's how the world works. But that's a big mental offense, right? Like, how often do you see it? Well, I would never pay somebody to teach me, blah, blah, blah. I would never pay to play. Listen, some people don't know this. Do you follow Grant Cardone?
I do, yes.
Okay. All right. So did you see when he spoke at Trump's rally?
Yeah, I did, yes.
Okay. So if after the show and your listeners do some research, go back in the timeline with Grant's social media and pull up the date that he spoke at Trump's rally. Okay. Look at the before and the after. Grant Cardone, and I'm not going to quote this. This is what I've heard and what I believe is probably somewhere true. I had heard that Grant paid somewhere around $175,000 to speak at that rally. Okay. Some people would say that's crazy. Now, if that's true, if that's a true number, I don't have the facts, I don't have the receipts. It's just what I've been told in my circles. Okay. But if you look at what happened after he spoke at that rally, he's on Fox News all the time now. He's hanging out with all kinds of crazy politicians. He's having talks about governor. Like, if he spent K or 100K or 200K, whatever it was, that has paid off for him like none other, because the people that didn't know him, that weren't in the real estate space, when those people watching that Trump rally, even the people that watch it just because they hate Trump, they all now see this name, Grant Cardone. Like, he is a great marketer. You know what I'm saying? And that money that he spent, if he spent that, okay, which I believe he probably did, that is nothing compared to what he's made because of the notoriety he got from that event, whether it be negative or positive. That put him in an entirely different level. He's hanging out with entirely different people. And so many, I mean, the millions of people that watched that rally, those are millions of people that heard Grant Cardone that never heard his name before. People just have to get over that mental fence. It took me a long time, but it's important.
So another mental fence that I'm sitting here thinking about that is biblically based is the whole iron sharpens iron. And I keep on repeating this. I have a mental performance coach, and this guy is absolutely phenomenal. But anytime that anyone says that, he always goes, comma, but only at the right angle. Right.
Yeah.
And I think that just absolutely powerful because, you said, it's got to be someone who fits your vibe, whether it's a mentor, whether it's the stage, whatever. There's I don't even want to say it. I was going to say I've been burned, but I didn't choose correctly.
Yeah.
Multiple times. I've spent probably $50,000 investing on myself over time. Right. And there's been some things that didn't pan out, but that was because I didn't choose those people correctly. So I just want to reinforce what Todd was saying here to everybody. Make sure that you pick the right person. If you're trying to be a better man, a better husband, whatever, I'll definitely mentor you. But if I don't fit your vibe, go find the guy who will, right? It's no skin off my back. If Todd sits with you, go do his mentorship program. Whatever works, just go find it. So just reinforcing that. On the real estate angle, Todd, I don't want to keep you all day, but I really want to get into some other things here. For the real estate, I know a lot of people, a lot of men who want to invest in real estate, myself included, right?
Yeah.
Have no idea how to get into it. So if you could give us, just a couple of quick tips or something like that. I know you got a few things on YouTube, but just like the top 3 things or whatever, right? That you could give us to at least give us a foot forward.
Yeah. If I was starting over in real estate, here's what I would do. Number one, I would find the right person that was out there that had a great real estate course. But here's the trap hole. And I'm not trying to sell people my stuff because I haven't even released it, but we have an entire university that we've been working on for a year and a half that dives into every piece of real estate. Because the difference with me and a lot of online influencers is that I do it all in real estate. I have a brokerage. I've been a realtor for a long time. We have property management. I have thousands of units myself. I invest in A class, B class, C class, C minus, D plus, whatever. I do Airbnb. I flip. I wholesale. Like, I literally do everything in real estate. The problem with a lot of courses that are out there, they only teach one thing. Like, hey, buy this course on subject 2. Buy this course on flipping. Buy this course on wholesale mastery. Okay. But there's only a couple of us out there, okay, that are influencers that absolutely teach an entire real estate program. Okay. And where most people get themselves in trouble in real estate, and I'm still on tip number one here, where most people still get themselves in trouble in real estate is because they choose one path. Because the typical influencer will tell you, you have to niche down and become an expert in one area and then go on. That is how you get yourself in trouble. And the reason that some of the influencers say that is because that's all they know how to teach. Okay. But you can't,
Right.
for me, I think you have to be very diverse in real estate. That way, when the market trends one way or the other, you can flop over. Like there's a time where you should be buying flip properties. There's a time where you should be holding all your properties. There's a time where you should be buying multifamily properties. Like the last year and a half has been a good time to buy multifamily because interest rates have been up. So they're not moving as quick, right? But a couple of years ago, you couldn't buy a multifamily for a good price anywhere. So that was the time where you would sell some of the properties that maybe you had fixed up, but you were holding, right? So if you're diverse in real estate, you can weather the storms. And most people can't weather a storm because they're just on one track, So take COVID, for example. All these people that just had, like they said, okay, I'm only going to do a multifamily properties using like a Fannie Mae loan. Okay. That's the only thing that they knew how to do. Well, if you had a Fannie Mae loan and you had market renters and they didn't pay their rent, you couldn't evict them. It was a federal moratorium. Okay. So in my case, I've never believed in taking those government backed loans. Like I don't do any of that. I do other traditional loans. But in my case, I had Section 8. So I do believe in the government. I have a large Section 8 portfolio. So during COVID, none of my tenants didn't pay rent because the government was paying most of their Section 8 rent. Okay. And we could still evict people because I didn't have any federally backed loans. Okay. So we could still evict people in our area. So I had no problems during COVID. The only problem I had was renters that believed what our government people were telling us. Like our local city mayor said, nobody in the city of Dayton will be evicted. Well, people actually believe that because they shut down our eviction court in the city. All of us investors, we said, okay, that's fine, but we sit inside of a big county and our county court didn't shut down the eviction court. So we just moved all of our evictions to county court. So that was the only problem. But I never stopped getting rent because I wasn't tied by one source of income or one whatever, right? And all the people that had a one track on how they invested in real estate, they got really, really hurt during COVID. But if you can flip, if you can wholesale, if you can hold multifamily, if you have properties that are in A class and C class and B, and you have a diverse portfolio, then you can really integrate. So let me finish up tip number one. I talk a lot. Find a course that's out there that includes everything. Okay. And I'll send you the link to mine once we release it. We're probably 2 weeks away, but there's literally a video and it's like the real estate blueprint of exactly how I've created everything. And it has information on absolutely everything from underwriting to single family to multifamily to syndicate, like everything is included in there. Find a course that will teach you about that. I'm not plugging a book, okay? But I do have this book. Some people haven't seen it. It's called It's Just Real Estate Dummy. I literally make $1.87 if people buy the book. And if you have like that Amazon Prime thing or whatever, I think you can download it for free. But what I did with this book was it's not going to change anybody's life. And I'll send it to you after the show. I'll get you a copy of it for yourself. All it is a foundation for every word that you'll ever hear in real estate. So it opens your mind to what everything is. So there's not going to be anything. I would like really dive into understanding the terms, like what is a cap rate? What's an ARV? What's a single family rental? What's a multifamily rental? How do you get appraisals? How do you do what? How do you flip? How do you wholesale? What's a brokerage? Like anything you'll ever hear in real estate is in this book. And I said, okay, what was the book that I would want when I first started real estate? Because there's so much stuff people would say, like, hey, like cap rate was the hardest one for me. Like, hey, Todd, what's the cap rate on that property? I'm like, could you tell me what a cap rate is real quick? But anyway, it's a good tool. So I would find something like that, number one. Number two is if you don't understand wealth and you don't understand money, I would dive into becoming completely addicted to learning about money, right? And Robert Kiyosaki has a great book. Most people have read it, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, learning about the 4 quadrants of money, learning about wealth strategies. So part of what we teach in our programs is about wealth strategies, right? Like how do you set up whole life policies to become an infinite bank? How do you make sure that your stock portfolios and brokerage accounts are set up in a way that can be your reserve funds? Like, I don't have any savings accounts. Like, I don't go to my bank and say, I need to open up a savings account. My daughter called me the other day. She's 19. She goes, Dad, I need to open a savings account. I said, no, you don't. We're going to open you a brokerage account to where your money's making money with you. The only difference is you got to call them a day ahead of time and say, I need some money off this account. So learn about how money works and how it's deployed and how to make the most on your money, whether it be whole life, whether it be brokerage policies, whatever it is, you have to understand money because if you get into real estate and you start making good money, you're going to fail and you're going to lose it because you're not going to know how to use it. Right. And then the third thing is now when you understand both those things, you can jump into real estate and you just need to start running numbers on properties. Like pick an area that you want to go into. Sometimes you got to invest out of state if you're in an area that's too expensive. So where I'm at, Dayton, Ohio, is always in like one of the top 5 places to invest in rental properties in the entire country. And most of them are in the Midwest, because in the Midwest, we have a low barrier of entry, and the Midwest has a cash flow market. So, you go to the big cities and their market goes like this, right? The Midwest goes like this, and it kind of stays stable. You're not going to get crazy appreciation, but you also won't get the floor to drop out on you, but your cash flow will stay steady for the most part. So if I'm giving advice, I would go to the Midwest if you're not already in the Midwest, or if you're not in an area where you can buy decent rentals where the numbers make sense. And if it's going to be out of state, you need to go to that area and you need to start interviewing property managers, realtors, contractors, and you need to develop your A team. You need to develop that power team. And then you go back and you start running numbers. Get yourself familiar for a couple months, just underwriting all of the deals that come across, right? Like every listing that comes across that would fit your criteria, just start underwriting it and seeing if the numbers work. Okay. But while you're doing that and you're underwriting deals, you're creating that power team. You already have realtors in place. You already have contractor in place. You already have a brokerage in place. You got to make connections with lenders, hard money lenders. And if you don't know what hard money lenders, you need to research it. Have connections with hard money. You need to be creating those private money circles, the people around you that you know or you can get access to that have money, that have retirement accounts that maybe would loan you money. There is so much money in our country, it's ridiculous. And if you think about the high earners like doctors, lawyers, psychologists, people that make a lot of money, 6 figures, but they don't have anything to write off their income at the end of the year. Those are the perfect people that will invest in real estate with you because they don't have time and skill, they have money. So if you have the time and the skill, you got to find the money.
Right.
So start working on those private relationships. And people are like, well, I can't go raise 50, 100. Yes, you can. It's easy. If you have a great deal, the money's easy to find. But you have to start making those connections. And some people are like, well, how do I find those connections? Well, if you really don't know anybody, okay, and there's nobody in your life that has any money whatsoever. And by any money, like 10, 20 grand, you can take a deal down. Find out where all the lawyers go after court to have a drink. Find out where all the doctors, what restaurant they go to chill out. Then go in there, sit down at the bar and drink a water, or if you drink, have a drink and start talking to people and make some really incredible connections. Get on all of the investor forums, like Bigger Pockets, and there's lots of great forums out there that just start having conversations with people and then start adding value with no expectation of return. Some of my best real estate clients came from me just putting like little blogs on some of these forums. I've made millions of dollars just by making a connection on a forum with an investor that was out of state that ultimately come in here to invest. So at the end of the day, that's how I would start, and that's what I would do.
That's awesome advice. Awesome advice. Going into some of your mentorship programs, things like that. I know you're a phenomenal speaker. I've seen you in person, right? People can go out and look at your YouTubes. They can check out your podcast. I guess my question is what all do you mentor in? You got real estate, of course, but
Yeah.
you're also a speaker.
Yeah, so there's 3 areas that we mentor in, okay? And it's 3 areas that I think I'm a rock star in and that I can teach really well. Number 1 is real estate. That's like the easiest one. I can teach somebody to become a millionaire in real estate in my sleep. It's not hard. If people just listen and they take action, I'll give them a blueprint to wealth. Like that's easy. The second thing that I think is very important as we talk about wealth is I mentor in vertical integration. Vertical integration is a big part of what I do, and that means real estate's a foundation, but how do I vertically integrate on top of that to create all these companies that feed one another? Okay. So I don't have a bunch of individual companies that all make money. I have a bunch of companies that all feed off one another. For example, my property management and my real estate investing feeds my landscaping company because we need landscaping, right? My healthcare company, which we provide mental health group homes and developmental disability services, those people need housing. So my real estate company feeds the housing. That company comes in and provides the services. So we're double dipping in a legal way in these units. Like I have an entire like multi-million dollar healthcare company that all they do is provide services to those with developmental disabilities. That company feeds off that. Do we have a drain company, right? I have a real estate brokerage that feeds us clients into the property management. I even had, the only one that's not vertically integrated is a coffee shop down in Cincinnati that I've never even seen, that I invested in with these girls that need an angel investor. But everything else is vertically stacked businesses that all feed one another, that all work off one another, and they're in various industries. Like I have a lot of companies, whether it be a landscaping, whether it be a drain company, whether it be, healthcare or mental health group home or sober living or whatever it is, they're all kind of separate entities. Like our media company, our media company creates, like I have a whole in-house team because I believe in doing everything ourselves. But any influencers you see online, my team creates the same type of stuff, right? Like we use all the big platforms. I have computer engineers. So all of that not only does my media company help third parties, and we're very selective about the clients that we pick. Like we only want to work with people that really want to blow their company up and want to create a really great, funnel and ecosystem and lead system like that want to create a monster. Because it's expensive to create, right? And if you've looked into it, it's expensive for these marketing agencies out there. So I don't even advertise for it. It's just referral. That media company is in place because of my speaking, because of my social media, because I need renters to go in my rental properties. So I created the media company, right? Like, and we can create all of our ads for every different business. But then that also opened up that we have clients coming in. So we have clients coming in that we're building their businesses for them. But that feeds the money to pay for all my stuff, right? Like everything is vertically integrated. And that's the
Right.
second thing. The third thing that I teach, which is a very exclusive group, okay? And I say this not to sell anybody, but it's an application only mentorship. We only accept 20 students a quarter because it's a very intense mentorship. It's not for a newbie. It's only for established entrepreneurs that have capital to deploy. And the reason is it's $50,000 to be a part of this program. And the reason that it's a high offer like that is because it's a 12-month white glove done with you class. And what we do is we bring people in and we walk them through, we help them create all their policies or procedures, we help them get through their application and their certifications, and we help them start their first Medicaid funded company within the developmental disability space. And when we talk about that, these are multi-million dollar companies. Like it's mine has become the biggest company that I have. Like it's incredible. And the
Wow.
margins are incredible. So the reason that it's so limited is because literally me and one other person on my team, and I don't trust anybody to teach it. Okay. So me and my assistant, like we literally white glove people through. We find out what they need in their specific area, their specific state, and we help them get through the entire approval process. We help them get through how to hire employees, what staff you need, like literally done with you. And it's a 12-month process. We stay with them until they're able to open the doors on their first developmental disability service company. But within a year, they're making multi-millions. So it's not expensive to start that company, but you do have to have a little bit of reserve. Like when you first start, you're going to have a little payroll in the bank. You're going to have to spend a couple thousand for
Right.
your applications. So it's not super expensive to start, but you can't take somebody that's broke and doesn't have any money whatsoever and say, okay, start this company. Now they're like, okay, well, I got a client, but I got to wait 30 to 45 days for Medicaid to pay me. How am I going to pay my employees? So we're very strict about who we approve. And we want to make sure they're the right fit because it is a very, very elite group of people. But the ones that we get into that space, they kill it. They kill it. And that's it. So like we actually don't have an offering for that coming up for like another month. Cause like I said, we do it every quarter or we actually have to gauge where the students are at. So like the first 90 days is very intense. We're very hands-on with them trying to get, because we have to learn when we go into an area, we have to learn the procedures in that area. We have to learn the laws in that area. And we do that as a team for them so they don't have to do all the legwork. So it depends on that first 90 days and where the students are at, because we have some students that come from a very complicated area that don't have cooperative county boards. So as long as we're flowing through like we should, every quarter we open it up to 20 more people. Sometimes it's every other quarter, depending on what it is. And we don't advertise that anywhere. We'll run some funnels every once in a while to a very selective group. But those are the three things that we do. Real estate those are like, you can buy the real estate blueprint course and go through that on your own. You can do a one-on-one mentorship with me, which I'm very limited with that because I don't have a lot of time. So I only pick people that I think are going to be able to kill it. But those are the three areas that we really.
Nice. That's a hell of an offering. Hell of an offering. So kind of wrapping this all up, Todd, I'm really excited about this event for you. I wish I could make it, but I was already committed to doing another speaking engagement, which is in New Orleans, which might be a touch better than Dayton.
Maybe it's a little bit funner than Dayton, Ohio.
But anyways, right behind you got Maxed Out, right? Your brand. You got this Maxed Out event coming in April. Tell us a little bit about that and what, anybody who wants to sign up for that, what they might expect out of that event.
Sure. Yeah. So we really Maxed Out is all about finding where your limit's at, hitting a ceiling, and then finding ways to crack through the next phase in your life, right? So like max out, but continue maxing out. And when I created that, I didn't know Ed Milet existed with Max Out. So maxed out was like always my thing because I always felt maxed out in my life and how do I conquer? But anyway, so traveling the country, speaking on stages, I've seen all of the things that I love about conferences and masterminds. I've also seen all the things that I hate about them. So we came back and I'm also very much in love with my city. I love where I come from. And our city never lacks talent. We have so many talented people, but we lack access. So to go to high-level masterminds, you have to go to Dallas, Austin, Scottsdale, Miami, Las Vegas. And I said to my team, we can do something really, really incredible here. And my network is that I can bring incredible people right here to Dayton, Ohio. And maybe it's one less weekend that I got to travel. So we came back and we demoed our downstairs. We built out this incredible atmosphere. It's like literally club setup. Like we have a $400,000 AV audio system, all the lights, all the DJ stuff, smoke, fog, whatever, complete control room. Like
Right.
it's LED walls. It's incredible. And we wanted to do the event for everybody. So it's not just a real estate conference. It's a true mastermind. And everybody that's coming in to speak is a killer in one space or the other. Maybe it's real estate, maybe it's healthcare. I have two YouTube gamers coming in that have like 4 million followers, and they're going to talk about their personal branding and how they built that. I have one of the best tax strategists in the world coming in to speak. My financial advisors are there. We have Tim Story, obviously, who's going to do the life part of it. Ruben West, who's incredible. Matt Cox
Oh,
from Inside True Crime Podcast. He did 17 years for mortgage fraud. He was like the real life Catch Me If You Can. He's one of my good buddies, but he's coming in now. He's making 200,000-300,000 on YouTube every month. So he's going to talk about that transition from like federal prison and being a snitch to now he consults the FBI and the banks. I have a couple that I actually bought my mansion off of because they sold it because they were ambushed in their driveway by the ex-wife. And the husband ended up having to take the life of his ex-wife and the new husband that came and tried to kill them in their driveway, right? But he was a celebrity nutritionist. She was a Hollywood stunt woman. He had a healthcare company. So like think about all the superfoods that come out during the 90s. His company was Genesis X, Genesis Pure, and they brought all those here. He was on the Dr. Oz show and like had all this fame and came out with the green tea bean that was like that weight loss fat on Dr. Oz. And he was sued by the federal government for $87 million. And then he moved out of the West Coast, came to Yellow Springs, Ohio, which nobody usually knows where that at. It's outside Dayton, but my neighbors are Dave Chappelle, Donnell Rawlings. And he built this beautiful retirement home, was going to retire forever. And then this ambush happened. But anyway, he sold that first company for like $900 million. And now he has a brand new company and his wife is an incredible life coach. They're coming to like tell their story. There's something for everybody, right? So if it's somebody that's wanting to launch their first business, somebody that wants to scale, somebody that feels stuck, somebody that needs motivation, or somebody that really needs the playbook on wealth, that's what this event is for.
Absolutely. And I just want to make one additional plug on there, right? Great information, great event, but once again, get in that right room. And this sounds like exactly the right room.
When are you putting this podcast out?
So this will be in 2 weeks.
2 weeks. Okay. So there might be time. We're very limited on how many tickets we have left. But if the people listening to this go to our landing page, which is live.maxedout, MAXXEDOUT, live.maxedout.com, they can use a special code just because I'm here with you. It's not out there in the public, but if they use Miami 50, MIAMI 50, that will give them 50% off the gold or the VIP package. And that's not out in the public, but because I'm on your show, you can give your viewers a gift from me, and we'd love to.
I'll actually switch a couple around and get that on here this coming Monday, so that way they can take advantage of that.
Yeah, cool, man. I appreciate it. And I appreciate you having me on the show today. It was a good time.
Yeah, man, this was phenomenal. I got just tons of notes going on here, about the 3 tips and everything else. My mind's going to be brewing all day long. So I appreciate you being on, Todd. I know that your time is very, very valuable. So love hearing you speak. Want to see it again in the future. I really look forward to it. I just joined BTBY myself, so hopefully we'll run into each other there.
Yeah, I'm sure we will.
Yeah, man, just thank you again. God bless, and we will see you backstage.
All right. Likewise, man. See you soon.